Hello everyone and welcome to Clarity 16.0.1 Supportability and Feature Training. I am Vib Malhotra, and as part of this section we will be covering the financials enhancements. As part of 16.0.1, the investment grid has been enhanced to display financial and custom TSV data. The TSV data can be viewed in investment and the hierarchy views. And finally, we've also enhanced the ability to create weekly cost plans in the modern UX. This one came directly from our customer innovation panel number D472. The reason this is important is that as customers capture and track their financial details for their investments, they want the ability to view their financial TSV data in the investment level grid. In addition, the customers that have defined hierarchies to manage their investments would also like to see their financial data broken down in TSVs to make the necessary decisions as needed. The ability to view the financial TSV data is now available in the following investment grids: projects, ideas, and custom investment types. TSV total can be added using the column into the grid view, and the TSV per period data can be configured using the view option. It is important to note that no data will be displayed in the grid till the user executes the new job that is made available in 16.0.1. The details for the job will be discussed later in this section. Adding a TSV per period data in the grid will automatically add the period carousel, which allows the user to go forward or backward within the defined time periods. As part of this release, the following TSV data is available in investment grids: the actual capital cost, actual operating cost, actual cost, which is the sum of the capital and the operating cost, forecast capital cost, forecast operating cost, and forecast cost, which is the total of the forecast capital cost and forecast operating cost. Forecast data will only be displayed in TSV if detailed cost plan has been created. So if you do not see a forecast data in your investment grid, then it'll be good to validate that a detailed cost plan has been created. Financial data is read-only in this grid, and totals can be viewed using either the sum of periods or grand total. TSV total columns cannot be added to the details flyout. Coming directly from the customer innovation panel, we have now provided the ability to view the TSV data in weeks. Again, this is from the customer innovation request number D472. The customers can now create their weekly cost plans. Of course, it requires that the weekly time periods have been created prior to user generating these cost plans in weeks. The weekly period is available in all grids that displays TSV data. Ability to view the TSV data using the following period is now available in the modern UX. The users can see the TSV data in weeks, months, quarters, and years. TSV attributes can be secured and relabeled using field level security, and TSV total can also be used in widgets now. The details for that will be covered in the widgets enhancement. Customers also have the ability to view their custom TSV data in their investment grid. The custom TSV data is also editable in the investment grid. TSV data is also available to our customers in the hierarchies. The financial TSV data from investment are available in the investment grid of the hierarchy. The TSV from different investment types can be included in the grid view, and selected totals are automatically colored to distinguish between the different columns. In per period, the TSV from different investment will have the investment type listed in the parentheses to indicate which investment is that data being pulled over, as seen in this example where I have funding allocation coming from strategy and fund distribution coming from idea. There is a new job that is introduced in 16.0.1. The new job is called Post Actuals to Investment. The new job will generate the investment actual and forecast TSV data in the investment and hierarchy grid. After upgrade, the users will not see any data in the investment and hierarchy grid till this job is executed. The new job can be executed for investment OBS or for selected investments. The new job should be scheduled to run at a regular interval to generate the data. We recommend to run the job after posting financial transactions into VIP because this is where the data is coming from. We've also enhanced the data warehouse to now include data from hierarchies. Hierarchy relationship as defined in the modern UX will be available in the following two tables: DWH underscore CMN underscore hierarchy. This table contains the hierarchy summary table, and the second is DWH CMN hierarchy node. This contains the investments in that hierarchy. It is important to note that none of the investment data is replicated, as those are virtual in hierarchies and can be obtained by joining with the investment tables in the data warehouse. As part of this release, we have also enhanced the error message related to the cost plan not being generated because the data, the rate matrix that was selected does not have the correct roles defined in that rate matrix. In prior release, in certain situations, the error message that we would display was rates and cost are both missing for one or more roles. We did not provide the name of the roles, and that was a customer request to enhance this error message to now indicate which specific roles do not have the rate defined in the rate matrix. Starting 16.0.1, now the error message will list out the exact roles that are missing in the rate matrix, due to which the cost plan could not be generated. With that, let's see the product in action. So here I am in Modern UX. I am in Clarity 16.0.1. And I'm going to begin by first going into my project list and showing you my TSV data that I can view within my project investment list page. So here I'm in my financial summary page. If I scroll to the right now, I've already included my TSV data. I am viewing the actual cost, the forecast cost, plan cost data that I have already pulled in from my investment itself. I can see the totals for those by looking at the column, and I can include any one of these into my view, which is the actual cost, the forecast cost, the plan cost, or any of their breakdown in terms of the operating cost and capital cost. These totals are available. And if I go into my view settings, I will see that I have the option to include the necessary per period metrics that I would want to see. All the new attributes are now available for me to include in here. I can see the data by month, or I can see the data in weeks, quarters, or year. I can define my start and end period, and I can configure my totals to be displayed either sum of periods, which is the period defined right here, or the grand total, which then is regardless of the sum of periods. Once I have included my per period metrics, the carousel is automatically added to my screen that allows me to go back and forth either for the future periods or in the past period. Next, I'm going to go into my ideas and show you the same TSV that is available in my ideas investment grid. So here, if I scroll to the right, I have included my custom TSV data. I've created a custom TSV called fund distribution, and I have included that in my grid layout. Adding it to my grid is exactly like any other out-of-the-box TSV, where I can either include the totals under the column, or I can go into the view option and display the data using just the fund distribution. So my custom TSV is available here. I also have the option to edit any of these TSVs. If I just double click in here and I populate the value, and I can see that it's getting added, and all my widgets that is reading the data from here is automatically updated. So it's the values are editable for out of the box and for custom TSV. And next, let's go into my custom investment type, and I'm going to go into my custom investment type called supplier, and here I have created two TSVs, custom TSVs, which is the invoice and payment. So there are two custom TSVs that I've created, and I can see the data for those for my defined period. Next, let's go back to the project, and we will then see how we can create weekly cost plans now starting 16.0.1. To do that, I'm going to go into my project GDPR compliance, and in here I'm going to go into my financials, and I'm going to create a new cost plan, and let's call this one my weekly allocation plan. Let's specify this to be of period type weekly, and notice the minute I selected weekly, my period types are defaulted. Let's say I want this to be from the period of January 1st, so of 2022, and let's leave it for till May 2022. I want my grouping attribute to be of resources, and let's give this a ID because I did not use the auto numbering. And my cost plan is created. Let's go inside the cost plan and populate the details, and I want my details to be created based on allocation. So I'm going to go ahead and say populate it from allocation, and my data is automatically calculated. And let's set this to see this for by default. As you can see, it is showing it by month because that is how my view is configured. But if I want to see it by weeks, I can just go ahead and change it to weeks. So this is just the setting in my options, as well as in the, and then that is saved in my view. So now I've changed it to show me the data on a weekly basis, and you can see I have my data now broken down into the weekly basis. And because I have the data defined or generated based on the allocation, it added the weekly starting from the time where the data was populated. I can change this to also see it on a quarterly basis, so I have the flexibility to see in weeks, months, quarters, and years. So let's look at it in quarters. And now I see the Q4 and Q1 data populated for me. If I go back out to my projects grid view, and within the project grid view, you can see I've already included widgets that are available that have been added to my view. The widgets, which will be covered more in detail, which is now introduced in 16.0.1, the ability to define widgets across different investments. Again, that will be covered in a separate section. In this section, I will only be covering the ability to define the widgets using TSV data. So as you can see, I have defined a couple of widgets that are pulling actuals based on certain grouping attributes. In my case, it is strategy and goal. Let's just look at some of that details. If I go into my manage widgets, I can see the spend by sponsor is a widget where I am grouping the information based on planned cost and the strategic sponsor. So I'm summing my data based on planned cost and I'm grouping based on their strategic sponsor. There's another one that I'm seeing the data for actual cost. So I've summed the actual cost based on the strategy. So TSV data can now, the totals can be included in the widgets itself. Next, let's go into hierarchies and let's look at the same TSV data for coming from my investments. So if I go into my hierarchies and I'm going to go into FY 2021 planning, in here under my investment grid, when I can see all my TSV data that has been defined. See, here I have already pulled in the plan cost, forecast cost, and the actual cost from my investments. In addition, as you remember, I talked that I created a fund distribution, which is a custom TSV defined in my ideas. I have also pulled that over. So I have now out of the box TSV data and the custom TSV data all included in my hierarchy investment grid. I can again use the columns to see all the respective details. I can include additional ones. So if I go to the totals, I can see the fund distribution, which is my coming from my ideas, which is a custom TSV, and I can see all the out of the box TSV totals that I can include. If I go into my view option, I can control which all per period data do I want to see. I have the actual operating cost, I have the forecast cost, as well as the plan cost. There is the fund distribution where the source investment type, in this case idea, is listed in the parentheses. If I had data pulled in from my supplier, then any of the TSVs from that would have also been listed in here and would have been listed under the parentheses that is coming from my custom investment type called supplier. While I'm in the view metrics, let's also look at I have created a metrics, which in this case is I want to look at the calculated metrics, which is aggregated profit and loss. This is just a metrics that I've created in my hierarchy, and what I want to show is that I can build a widget based on the metrics defined within hierarchy. So to create the widget, the process is the same. I can go into the manage widgets. I can say create a new widget. I want to create a widget of tile because I just want to see the total of my aggregated profits. I'm just going to pick tile as my widget type. I'm going to go in next and let's give it a name, just my total profit. I want to do a sum, so I can only include a TSV total in the widget by selecting the widget type of sum. And let's sum it by my aggregated profit, which is the metrics that is defined in my hierarchy. If you notice that within the parentheses, it is indicating that this is the hierarchical attribute. That means this attribute is defined as a metrics within my hierarchy. And I can then just go ahead and click on create. There is my total profit. I can go ahead and include that in my hierarchy. And if I scroll to the right, I see my total profit of 31.64 million added as a widget. So now I can create a widget based on the metrics that is defined within the hierarchy, as well as I can create a metrics within the hierarchy based on my TSV total, which is an example right here, project spend by strategy. Alright, next I'm going to go into the classic UI and show you the new job that is introduced. So in order for these financial data to be displayed within the investment grid or the hierarchy investment grid, we need to run this new job called post actuals to investment. If I search with that name, there it is, the post actual to investment. Looking inside of it, I can see that I can run this based on either OBS or individual investment, and just like any other job, I can schedule it or run it immediately. Running the job is a standard process. I'm not going to do that now. And the last thing that I wanted to show was the enhanced error message for the cases where you're generating a cost plan based on allocation and the rate matrix does not include the role. To do that, first let's look at a rate matrix that I've already defined. So I have here within the manage matrix, I have a matrix that is defined that only includes the rates for developers. In my case, developer is the only one that I've defined the rates for in this rate matrix. Now if I go to the modern UX, I'm going to go into the investment list for my modern UX and I'm going to go into a specific project, which is the printed marketing, and I want to generate the detailed cost plan for printed marketing. So within my project, let's go into financials. Prior to that, let's go ahead and look at the rate matrix that is assigned to my project. So I'm going to come in here into properties. I've included the attribute that lists out the matrix that is assigned to my project for calculating the labor cost. So in that case, it is the labor rates, which only has developer. If I go into my staff, you will see I have roles beyond developer. I have architects, business analysts, network, and so on. So I have multiple roles that have been included in my project, but the rate matrix that I have assigned is only for the developer one. If I go into financials now, let's create a new cost plan, which is going to be my plan based on monthly. I want this to be calculated based on resource, and let's give it a ID. Now if I go inside here and I generate the data based on populated from allocations, I should see the new error message. And there's my error message that is telling me that the rates and cost are missing the following resources or roles: the business analyst, project manager, architect, network engineer, test engineer, and storage architect. So the error message has been enhanced to display specifically which all roles or resources are not included in your rate matrix. So the end user no longer has to go searching for who's missing the rate in the rate matrix. This concludes this section. Thank you, everyone.